Hello all, and welcome back to the YouTube channel of alldaychesstd. We are closer than ever, super close to our 100 subscriber goal, and I'm so excited to reach that. Today we're going to be going over some endgames. This series is going to be a really long one, so sometimes you get a really good position in a game, but you don't know how to convert at the end. That's what these endgames are for. We'll be able to we'll be able to convert our winning position from the middle game and lead it to a win in our endgame. So, we're going to be going over some checkmates in the endgames first. So we'll be going over the 2 queen checkmate, the 2 rook checkmate, the single rook checkmate, the 2 bishop checkmate, and tons more. So guys, stay tuned, and if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe, like the video, comment down below what I should do next, and be sure to share with friends and family. Thank you guys so much, and let's get straight into the video. For our very first checkmate, we will be learning king and 2 queens versus the opponent king. So, we'll actually start from the black's perspective. So let's say black has a king on c8, white has a king on b1, and black will have queens on d8, and let's say b3. And we'll make it black to move. So let's say you get a position like this in game. Since you have 2 queens, it really does not matter where it is. But here's the basic idea. Well, I mean by where it is, where the queens are. But here's the basic idea. We want to do something called move the chains, or so I think about it. So we have 2 queens. So the queens are the most powerful, so they can guard any place. So right now, this queen's guarding all of these squares so far, right? Including the diagonals and stuff. But more importantly, we're looking at this column right here. So this queen takes care of all of this and the rank, right? So we just want to keep gaining the rank, right? We want to keep moving the chains, and we want to limit the white king in this case, to as little squares as possible. So there's many different moves. We can play a check on g5, a check on g8, a check on d4, a check on b6, but those are not the moves we're looking for. It's not always about the check. We always want to control the enemy, right? We want to be winning. We want to control them and make them move to certain squares. We want to gain the file or gain the rank. So here, the best move is actually to play queen to d2. You might be wondering why, but let's think about it. This queen already guards all of the 3, rank number 3. So when we move the queen to d2, it guards all of rank number 2. So now the king has to stay on rank number 1. See? He can't come to the second rank. For example, if we would have played queen to d4 check, then they can play king to g2. And the king is not much trapped anymore. It's not very trapped. So that's why we play queen to d2. Now the king is trapped, so he can only go to 2 squares, f1 or h1. It does not matter which one. If they go to f1, we can simply play queen to b1 checkmate, or even queen to d1 checkmate. If they go to h1, same thing. The reason it's the same thing is because this queen is the one that's important right now, because it's guarding all of the second rank. So now we just need to move this queen and find a check, and it's checkmate. So we can play queen to d1 or queen to b1. So now we're going to look at another example of 2 queens and a king. Okay, now here's a same sort of idea. 2 queens versus the enemy king. We also have a king. Okay, the evaluation bar might say mate in 3, right? But we need to follow our same principle. Gain the file, gain the rank, or move the chains, however you want to think about it. So, this king is on the 6th rank. We can either take over by coming here, because then that restricts this king to this. Well, then we control everywhere here, and the king has to stay in these squares. Or we can move up here, and the king has to stay behind this. Like this is his little box he can move in. Right? So let's say we play the move queen to f5. And then the king, remember, it's all blocked out by this. It can't move up. So it either has to move back or stay on its current file. let's say it stays on its current file. Then we can bring our other queen, check. Why do we bring it here? We bring it here because after the king moves away, we have control of this file. For example, now the king moves here, you can see we have control of the 5th file and the 6th rank. Rank. Right? And now what the king has to do is it has to move somewhere else. Oh wait, sorry, no, it's white's turn. So now what we can do is we can gain it again. Check. Notice how we control this. Well, actually the king has to move, but notice how we control this square and this square. Okay, here it's a little bit tricky actually. We know we can play checkmate right away. We can also play check, and then when the king moves, we can play checkmate. But remember, we do not want to stalemate the king. Do not keep controlling him. When he's in the corner, you want to always watch out. Because if you play a move like queen b6, that's stalemate. Even though you're winning by 2 queens, 2 whole queens, it's a draw. Right? So you always want to be careful when the king's in the corner. Here you can take extra precautions and go check, and then checkmate and stuff. So, you might be wondering, why is the queen here? We know that kings and kings cannot be touching. But this queen can come and touch this king and be next to it because it's supported by this queen. Right? So this king cannot capture this queen because this queen is guarding the queen. So let's say the king can't capture queen A because queen B right here is guarding queen A. Okay, now we'll look at one more example of 2 queens versus a king. In this position, it's black to move. Our king is in the corner and our 2 queens are behind it. But we can still win this game. Fairly easily too. So it's black's turn. Let's just say he wants to move here. Okay, quick tip. If you're playing the side that's defending against the 2 queens, try and stay in the center and do not go to the edges of the board. But if you are forced to go to the edge of the board to hope your opponent makes stalemate, you want to stay in the center because it's super hard to checkmate in the center of the board. And it's very easy to checkmate in these corners. Right, so now it's our turn. We have a couple of different moves. We can move here and give a check. We can give a check here. We can give a check here. We can give a check here, here, and here. So many ways. Remember, we want to gain control. This king currently does not have a box because it can move basically anywhere. Right? So we want to restrict the opponent's king. And we can very easily do that by playing queen to a5. Now this restricts this king. They cannot come here. So now the king is cut off into this area. Right here. So now the king moves. And now what do we do? Well, can we gain the file? Now, if we move it with our same queen, then he can just come back. And we didn't really gain anything. So we want to get our other queen in. But, how can our queen get in? If we play queen to f4, we just lose our queen. So, here we can actually play queen to e5 check. This is very strong because the queens are supporting each other and we're checking the opponent's king. So now the king has to move back to either d3 or f3. He wants to stay closer to the center, so let's say he goes to d3. Now actually we can continue gaining the file by queen f4, followed by our sequence, just keep gaining. And then, but this, queen f2, right? So let's say we keep gaining like this, but you have to keep in mind these stalemates, right? This can get very tricky. This may not look like a stalemate, but it is a stalemate. But let's say we keep going, right? The reason he wants to play here is because we hope to fall into this. But what if we play a move like this? You can play check. But wait a minute. We want to gain the file. Instead, why don't we play queen here? And then the king has to move, and then we do a checkmate. But now let's go back a couple moves. Right about here. Now let's say the king comes back to d3. Instead of gaining the file, if you guys like checks a lot, you can play queen to c3 check. And now the king has to move, right? But where can it move? Let's see. It can't move anywhere on this file. Okay. Can't move anywhere here. That's fine. So it should be able to move to these two squares. But look at the queens working so nicely. This queen takes care of this square. This queen takes care of this square. They both protect each other. And yeah, it's just wonderful. Look how nice that is. Okay, so guys, I really hope you enjoyed the two queens versus the king mate. Next up, we'll do queen versus rook, which is a similar pattern, and then rook and rook, and then king and rook, and so on and so forth. So please be sure to subscribe and like. It really takes a lot of time and effort, so it would be a great motivation. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.